Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's lecture. Today we are starting off with product portfolio management. Product portfolio management. That's what we are doing for this lecture. So there's another approach. There's another approach to developing a corporate growth strategy. And most companies sell a variety of products or services, as we know, which together makes up what we call their product portfolio. It's important to note that resources are always limited, so companies would always try to allocate available resources between the different products in the best way as possible, right? And by managing these products as a portfolio, just as we have like in investment portfolio, the entities are able to allocate their resources in the optimal way between the different products. And in this case, priority can be given to the best value product in the portfolio. Again, entities are able to identify areas for potential improvement of the product, right? And then they're able to have a balance of the mix of products to ensure that the company optimizes products, because some products will be making more profit than others. And so they will combine them in a way to give them optimal profit. Now, strategic management of product portfolio would mean that a company maintains a range of products at different stages in their life cycle. We've talked about life cycle of products or product life cycle already. Well-established and profitable products, which are referred to as cash cows, can provide finance to support products that are in the early stages of their development or products which are still in their growth phase. And decisions can be taken about when to stop making some products when they move into their decline phase. Right. Well-balanced portfolio would contain many established products and products that will be tomorrow's winners. Okay, and a balanced portfolio can be aligned with the company's strategic objectives and acceptable risk. Now, developing strategies for product portfolio as a whole also enables an organization to review and revise the portfolio continually according to changes in market conditions, competitors' actions, and resource availability. All right. Now let's look at other strategic product and service development models. We'll start off with McKinsey and General Electric Business Screen. So this model was put forward by work between these two companies. And this is the model, the GE McKinsey matrix. It's a 3x3 matrix. So on the horizontal, we have business unit strength, which is also called the competitive position. And then we have industry attractiveness or market attractiveness, right? So we'll look at the various components of the matrix later. Now, strategic business units are evaluated in this matrix using two dimensions, as I've said, the market attractiveness, okay, which is also called the industry attractiveness, and business position, which is also called the business unit strength. Now, if you compare those to the BCG matrix, which considers strategic business units simply in terms of its two overall dimensions, this particular matrix establishes the position of a strategic business unit by determining the factors that contribute towards the market attractiveness and business position. This additional analysis of the underlying factors is intended to produce more accurate positioning and lead to a better understanding of the strategies for the strategic business units. It is important to note that the factors that underline these dimensions may not be the same for different organizations, okay? The model can therefore be tailored by organizations in order to provide the most realistic and meaningful results, okay? So what constitutes market attractiveness? Now, the factors that are considered for market attractiveness include the market size and structure, long-term growth, profitability of the industry, product life cycle, demand, market segmentation, pricing, the trends of pricing, environmental impact, growth rate, product differentiation, technology impact, social impact, and then legal impact. These are the factors that are considered for industry attractiveness. Now, for the business unit strength, such factors considered include total and relative market share, profitability, margins, growth rate, strength and weaknesses, brand strength, customer loyalty, product differentiation, product technology position, environmental impact. Okay. So the factors identified within the two dimensions, that is the business position and the market attractiveness, are each given a magnitude or weighting, and the strategic business unit will be given a rating for each of the factors. The overall rating for each of the dimensions is then determined by calculating the weight, okay? And this is carried out for both dimensions, and the SBU's position on the graph can be determined, okay, as shown here. Okay. So this is what comes out after the factor determination and then the positioning. So each of these identifies the investment strategy that should be followed for that particular strategic business unit. Okay, we have three main strategies, which includes growth or grow, hold, okay, hold, protect, or selectivity, and then we have harvest or divest. So you can see them distinguished by their various colors. Okay, so let's look at them one after the other. Now, when we say growth, the strategy, with this growth strategy, the SBUs have the ability to bring in high future returns, okay? And as such, they attract investment in terms of research and development, advertising, brand development or expansion, and increase production capacity, right? Now, for the hold strategy, which is right in the middle, okay, the business units that fall into this section have the potential, but their position as yet is not clear. So they have a potential, but it's not yet clear, okay? Investment is likely to be given to units in this category that have a strategic purpose, or as a further investment after money has been used to grow these strategic business units, okay? And then for the harvest, okay, which are these three positions. Here, the strategic business unit may not perform well and operate in less attractive markets. Investment may be provided, but only if it is considered that the returns they will generate is sufficient to at least cover that investment. If that is not considered to be realistic, they may instead be divested, right? Okay, and as we know, every model has its own setbacks or criticisms, okay? So we'll look at a few of these. So for the GE business screen metrics, it requires significant expertise to accurately determine the market attractiveness and business strength of a strategic business unit. Right. It is expensive to produce such a portfolio or such a metrics. Okay, you need specialist consultants and who would certainly take a lot of money to be able to do this for the organization. Again, this model does not consider potential synergies that may exist between strategic business units. It doesn't. And then finally, magnitude weightings may be subjective. There's a lot of subjectivity that can go on in there. Okay. The next metrics we're going to take a look at is the Shell Directional Policy or Product Portfolio Matrix. This is also a 3x3 matrix. So this is an alternative strategic portfolio planning technique which aims to improve on the BCG metrics as we saw before. Okay, it analyzes the strategic business units along two axes in order to plot them in the grid. Okay, so we have prospect for sector profitability, and companies' competitive capabilities on that other side. Okay, so we'll take a look at each of them. So prospect for sector profitability, what does it mean? Now here, to determine where a strategic business unit will sit on this axis, it will be given a rating of 1 to 5 stars. So first of all, this is how it's going to be rated. So between 1 to 5 stars, the organization or the strategic business unit will be what? Rated on each of the following areas. Okay, the areas include market growth rate, market quality, industry situation, and environmental considerations before they will be what? They will be weighted, okay, to determine their rating between 1 to 5. There are several factors will be taken into consideration to determine the number of stars that a particular strategic business unit would be given in each of these areas. For example, an assessment of market quality, okay, market quality, which is one of the factors that will be considered, may consider factors such as profitability, historic stability of the market, and pricing behavior, right? When each of the 4 areas have been given a star rating, these will then be converted into an overall score for the prospects of sector profitability, okay? For the prospect of sector profitability, to know where to position the SBU. Okay, then we look at the company's competitive capabilities. Company's competitive capability. Right. Now, to determine where a strategic business unit will sit on this axis, a star rating again is allocated to each of these 3 areas, namely market position, product research and development, and production capability. Okay, now here again, once the rating has been assigned to each area, they will be converted into an overall score of the competitive capability of the company. Okay, so that is the results would have. Okay, those the results would have. So we'll look at each of those areas and then discuss them briefly. So depending on the rating, you know where to put the particular strategic business unit. Okay, so here for an SBU, which is located here, which is an unattractive prospect for sector profitability and a weak company's competitive capability, such is referred to as what? disinvest, or such strategy should include the disinvestment. Okay, and here the SBUs clearly are failing and are a drain on the company's or organization's resources. They should be liquidated and the resources reallocated elsewhere as quickly as possible. So these SBUs would have to be what? Taken off or disinvested. Then we have a situation where you have average prospect for sector profitability, or an SBU that has an average prospect for sector profitability combined with or having company's competitive attract capability, which is quite weak. Okay, here what you do is to do what we call phased withdrawal. You withdraw in phases. Okay, so here less urgent action is needed for the SBU in this position than those in thus disinvest. Thus, you have to quickly disinvest. Here, you have to do it on a gradual basis. So eventually they will be withdrawn and they will not continue in the long term. Now, the process of shutting them down should start with cash and resources being redirected towards strategic business units which show greater potential. Okay, so the fact that you are withdrawing does not mean you should just keep the money from them. You have to push it to other SBUs which have potential to grow. All right, then we have a situation where you have an organization that has attractive prospects for sector profitability, but then has a weak competitive capability. We call such double or quit strategy. Double or quit strategy. So here you realize that these SBUs are potential major future SBUs, which represent a gamble for the organization. So it could go either way. The company will need to decide whether to take the gamble and invest the capability into this SBU, or whether to withdraw from the SBU in this segment. Right. Okay. Then we have one that has high or attractive prospect for sector profitability, and then it has average competitive capabilities. Here, we call it a try harder strategy. Here, the SBUs are performing quite adequately for the meantime, but then they may become vulnerable when you consider the long-term, what do you call it, horizon. Okay, so they become more they become more vulnerable. All right. Then we have the cash generation or the cash generator. Here, the classic cash cow SBUs. These are the classic cash cow strategic business units. And here, such SBUs should not be invested in, but should be used to generate as much cash and other resources as possible that can be used to fund expansion elsewhere. All right. Then we have the growth, which is the SBUs that provide just enough resources, and then here the organization should be able to provide resources to be allocated to this particular SBU to allow it to continue to grow into the future. Then we have the leader. The leader. Here, resources should be focused towards the SBUs in this sector, okay? They are priorities for investment and represent the greatest potential for returns, okay? Again, these models have their own shortfalls, and for this particular model, it assumes that same factors apply universally to any product or business, okay? And then it does not offer any guidance for implementing the proposed strategy. So that is the criticism or the defect of this portfolio. We'll take a look at public sector matrix. public sector matrix, or the Montanari and Braca model. Montanari. So this was proposed by Montanari and Braca as far back as 1986. So this is a 2x2 matrix. Okay. So the ones, especially the BCG we have seen previously, doesn't give consideration to public services. This particular matrix is going to take a look at what? Public services. Okay. There's a need to assess such services, as it is important to know where limited public funds can be best spent. Now, to be able to address this need, these researchers developed a public service matrix which allows similar concepts to be applied, just as in BCG. Okay, here the services are analyzed along two axes. We have the service efficiency, okay, ability to serve effectively, and then we have public need and support and funding attractiveness. So public need and support and funding attractiveness, giving you a 2x2 matrix with 4 components. So we'll look at them one after the other. All right. So the service efficiency considers how well and effectively the service can be delivered after an assessment of its strength and weakness. Okay. And then the public need and support plus funding attractiveness is concerned with the extent to which the service is needed and appreciated by the public who use or benefit from the service. The greater this need is, the more likely there is to be political support for the service, and therefore the easier it is to justify as and what expense. So consequently, resources are more likely to be made available to this particular service. So this gives rise to 4 main areas within the matrix. You have the public sector backdrawer issues, and we'll take a look at them briefly. And okay, so public sector star. So here, the public sector star services are quite essential. The system as a whole relies on the provision of these services, and they represent areas where the system is doing well, and so where changes should not be made. Okay, this particular service is highly valued by the public, and the system is effective at providing the service. Hence, the strategic approach for such a service is to continue to provide cost-effective service while remaining vigilant to any threats to the service that may arise. Then we have the political hot box, and which is a service that is in demand by the public. A need for the service exists, or services that is what mandated. Okay. However, there are currently insufficient funds, resources, or competencies available in the system for the service to be provided effectively. There's high demand for it, but unfortunately, there is no resources available to provide the service. That's political hot box. Now, the strategy for a political hot box is to focus on obtaining resources for the service and creating systems that will facilitate the delivery of that service. The aim is to secure funding and move these services into the public sector star, okay, of the matrix. Then we have the golden fleece. Here, these services or these organizations provide very good service and they are delivered effectively. Okay, they are delivered effectively. However, the need or public support for these services is quite low. The low perceived need for these services makes them prime targets for cost cutting to allow the resources to be allocated to areas of greater need, right? Now, the strategy for a golden fleece is to aim to renew the public support and perceived need for the service. Urgent action will be required before the environment turns hostile towards the service and it is perceived as a drain on resources. Okay. Then finally, we have the backdrawer issue. Now, the backdrawer issue is a service for which there is neither significant need nor its significant need and support, nor is it heavily invested in by the system. They have a very low priority in terms of funding, and they are the primary targets for cost cutting. That is backdrawer issue. Now, the backdrawer issue should not be phased out of service unless they are perceived by management to be essential. If this is the case, then effort should be taken to raise the public awareness and support for the issue, perhaps by searching for a variation to its mission that may attract such support. The aim of this is to increase its funding attractiveness and move the service into the political hot box sector of the matrix. All right. So that's about public sector portfolio matrix. Let's take a look at corporate parenting. Corporate parenting. What is corporate parenting? This refers to the relationship between head office of an organization and its various strategic business units. In particular, it considers how the parent company adds value to the strategic business unit. Now, the extent to which parent company staff become involved in business strategy development process will always differ between organizations. The degree of involvement by the parent company will have a significant impact on the role of central departments such as HR, finance, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, there are three broad parenting styles that many organizations might adopt. They are financial control, strategic planning, and strategic control. Now, with financial control, here the parent acts on behalf of the shareholders to identify and acquire assets and businesses. The parent sets performance standards for the strategic business units for the purpose of control and monitors and evaluates the financial performance of these units. However, the managers of these units are given autonomy for carrying out business activities and decision-making at their own level, right? Then we have the strategic planning. The strategic planning, where the corporate parent aims to enhance the synergies across all strategic business units, and this is perceived or this is achieved via the provision of central services, okay, located at the head office, and resources facilitating communication and cooperation between strategic business units, and then also establishing a common purpose for the entire organization. Finally, we have the strategic control. Here, the parent deploys its own resources and competences to all the strategic business units in order to build value. The parent's own capabilities are therefore used to seize opportunities and to achieve what? Growth. Okay. Now remember we said that the main purpose of corporate parenting is to what? Is to add value. Is to add value. Now adding value is the main role of corporate parenting. Okay. The way this is done can impact on the strategic business unit by providing opportunities for the unit and so creating value for them, and then also adding cost to the SBU and so destroying value. So it's either they are adding value, the parent is adding value, or destroying value. Now, parent company should always aim to create value while taking care not to destroy value. How can they do this? They can do this by providing resources such as financial investments or expertise to the SBUs. They can do this by provision of central services such as HR, human resource, information systems, finance, and so on and so forth. Okay. They can also monitor performance and take corrective action. They can share knowledge and expertise across all these SBUs. They can facilitate communication, cooperation, and collaboration between these units. And then they can also provide access to supplies, markets, or sources of finance that would otherwise be impossible for each strategic business unit to obtain. Now, how can a parent company destroy value? One, by adding high administrative costs that the SBUs would have otherwise not incurred. This would destroy value if these costs exceed the benefit of the SBUs received. SBU and the benefit the SBUs receive by being part of the group. Again, increased bureaucracy can slow down decision making and hinder flexibility and responsiveness, and so thus leads to what? Destruction of value. Then finally, the strategic direction of the company can become confused or difficult to understand if the organization as a whole becomes too complex. Okay. We'll look at another metrics or model, that is the Ashridge portfolio display. This is a tool for assessing the attractiveness of potential acquisition targets or an existing business to the parent company. Okay? The portfolio display is presented as a matrix, and the strategic business units are plotted in respect of benefit and feel. Benefit and feel. Now, what do we mean by benefits? What do we mean by feel? So benefits refers to the value the business can add to the potential strategic business unit. Not all resources, as we know, and competencies of the business will be relevant. Only those required for growth will be included. Okay? That is the areas in which the business can help. The more a business can help the SBU, the more value it can add. What does it mean to say a feel? Feel means this is related to the strategic fit between the strategic business unit and the parent. Okay? How fit are these two? It considered their similarities, for example, the industry, organizational culture, organizational structure, and so on and so forth. Okay, so with this matrix or display, you have the fit between business unit parenting opportunities and the parent skill. Okay, that is how will business benefit. Okay, opportunities to add value or benefit, opportunities to add value. So you can also call it opportunities to add value. And then we have on this side the fit between business units and parent skills. That is what parents feel. Okay, this is called ability to add value. Ability to add value. This is opportunities to add value, and this is ability to add value. Now, there are 4 types of acquisition targets often arise based on the location of the strategic business unit on this grid we have. So we have the heartland businesses, we have the ballast business, we have the alien business, and then the value trap business. Okay. So we'll look at them briefly. So the heartland business businesses that operate in the same industry and the fee is quite what? High. So you can see the parent fee is high. Okay. The SBU lacks the competencies it needs for success, and the business has the relevant skills. So the opportunity to add value is what? Is high. All right. All right. Okay. So the parent will be able to add value to the strategic business unit without harming its existing business. These SBUs will be the core of future strategy for the business. All right, let's look at ballast business. Ballast business. For ballast business, these businesses operate in the same industry, one, so the feel is high. Okay, the feel is high. However, unlike Heartland, the opportunity to add value is low, right? The opportunity to help the SBU is low. The SBU is most likely already very successful without any help from the parent company. Therefore, while the parent will understand the SBU business very well, there's little the parent will be able to do to improve upon it. Okay. Here, the parent should adopt a light touch strategy for such strategic business unit. Then we have the alien business where the opportunity to add value is low, and then the ability to add value is also low. We call it what? Alien business. These business operate outside the industry of the business, and the parent has no knowledge of the factors that would be needed to make this business successful. The field is therefore low. The potential business already has the competencies it needs for success. It does not need the assistance of the parent, and so the benefit is also low. Okay. So the strategy for alien business is to what? Is to dispose them. Is to dispose them. Then we have the value trap business. Thus operates outside the industry of the business, and the parent has no knowledge of the factors that would be needed to make this business successful. Okay, the field is therefore low. However, the parent have the competencies and resources that the SBUs need to succeed. Therefore, there is an opportunity for the parent to add value, and therefore the benefit is high. Okay. Now, value trap businesses should be approached with care. The strategy is that they should be approached with care. The parent has the ability to add value. However, the lack of feel or knowledge of the industry creates the risk that they may do more harm than good. Okay, these businesses should only be invested in if the parent is willing to learn about the business of the strategic business units and the industry it operates in, so that they can be moved into the heartland section of the matrix. We'll look at international strategic choices. What choices are available for international organizations? Okay, so here we use the EPRG framework. E for ethnocentric, P for polycentric, R for regiocentric, and G for geocentric. We'll explain each of them as we go on. Now, let's look at ethnocentric organizations. Ethnocentric organizations are organizations with an ethnocentric management orientation. They believe that the home country is superior, right? And they have the following features. They place reliance on what they know already. When considering new markets, they will always seek out areas of familiarity and similarities with their own market. Okay, they will look out for areas that are similar to their current market. So therefore, little research is carried out for them to enter into a new market. Now, these organizations work on the belief that if something works in the home market or country, it will succeed anywhere at all they want to set up their new business. Okay. Products or services offered will be the same as those offered in the home market or their new market. Here, international offices of subsidiaries overseas are likely to be viewed as being less important or less competent than the head office. So everything is within. They are looking at within their local. They don't think that it is important to set up other offices outside their local area. Now, these entities are referred to as what? International companies. International companies. So I will take a typical example. This vehicle manufacturing company located in Japan, that is Nissan. Their initial strategy was that they thought that their organization, or they had this concept of ethnocentric stance, where the trucks and cars exported in the first instance were developed in their home country, Japan, and designed for the relatively mild winters experienced in the country. Now, when these vehicles arrived in the United States, they struggled to start in many states during the colder months. Home customers in Japan often covered the bonnet of the vehicles with blankets during the winter, and it was assumed that the customers in the US would do the same. Now, the approach of designing Japanese cars and selling them to American customers was not successful, and the products were rejected by the market. The company was left in the position of having to either change its orientation or exit the market altogether. Okay, eventually the company switched to what we call polycentric orientation. Okay, so that takes us to look at what a polycentric organization is. So these are organizations that have management orientation which consider each country in which the organization operates as unique and hold the belief that businesses are best run locally. Okay, their features are as follows. They think that each foreign market is considered unique and distinct. Okay, head office exerts little control or authority over activities in each market. Now, foreign subsidiary managers are given extensive decision-making flexibility in relation to production, technology, and marketing in meeting the needs of their local customers. Again, good ideas or best practices arising from overseas markets are unlikely to be taken forward and incorporated into the home or other markets because they believe each market is unique and distinct. These entities are often referred to as multinational organizations. Multinational organizations. Now, in the early 1990s, a company called CT Group operated as a polycentric organization. It had branches in numerous countries, each one carrying out its own policies. As a result, the overseas subsidiaries did not serve the group. Now, one City Corp executive described the organization at the time as being like a medieval state. He stated that there was a king and his courts. Okay, were they in charge? No. The land barons were in charge. The king and his courts may declare this and that, but the land barons just did their thing to their appointed land. Eventually, the decision was taken to switch to a geocentric orientation. So that is a typical example of a polycentric organization. All right, let's take a look at radiocentric organization. These are organizations with radiocentric management orientation view, and they view the world as consisting of a set of distinct regional markets, such as the African market, the European market, the Latin American market, the Asian market, and so on and so forth. Now, this approach is quite similar to the polycentric approach that we just saw because it recognizes the differences between foreign markets. However, unlike the polycentric orientation, this radiocentric organization also recognizes that there are some similarities. Apart from the distinctions, there are some similarities. And so they have the following features. Okay. Here, business strategy and activities are coordinated within the specific regions, but not across the regions. Okay. So a Ghana-based subsidiary manager would be expected to align to the company's Pan-African business strategy, but would be unlikely to have any opportunity to coordinate activities with similar subsidiaries based on Asia or Europe. Okay. Another feature is that they assume that all countries in the region, for example, West Africa, can be treated as a single market. A typical example is GM, that is General Motors, which operate with significant different strategies in Europe, in Asia, and the Americas. The senior managers of these different regions have a high degree of freedom and flexibility in making decisions. Okay. So finally, we take a look at the geocentric organization or orientation. Here, management orientation view the world as a potential market and aim to serve it effectively. They are truly global players that are able to recognize the similarities and differences between the home country and the international markets. And these are their features. Here, geocentrism essentially combines ethnocentrism and polycentrism into a single worldview. Again, the global market is understood as a single market. Here, there is no distinction made between domestic and foreign markets, so it's just a single market. It aims to create a global strategy that can respond completely to local needs and demands. Right? It focuses on strong and decisive behavior and benefits greatly from economies of scale. Finally, subsidiaries focus on worldwide objectives as well as local objectives. Each subsidiary should use its unique competence to make a unique contribution. Okay. So look at integration and responsiveness framework. That's the IR framework. And there's a framework that explains the strategies of multinational companies by classifying them into four types. Classify them into four types. And the classification of the company is determined by considering the pressures faced on the organization in terms of achieving global integration, right? And retaining local responsiveness. So integration and responsiveness, IR framework. Okay, so let's look at global integration. Okay, global integration relates to the way in which an organization seeks to coordinate its activities across various locations in which it operates. In doing so, the organization aims to achieve economies of scale as well as worldwide synergies and efficiencies. Pressures for global integration arise when there are opportunities for costs to be reduced, For example, establishing large-scale production plants that serve many markets or sourcing input from low-cost locations. Increased levels of homogenized customer demand. If a product is in universal demand, then more products can be sold worldwide with no or only minor changes. Technological prospects. Example, technology might need to be protected to avoid technological leakage, right? So coordination will be quite necessary. Then access to and high transport cost of raw materials that are in a fixed location, for example, aluminium production. Now, these pressures arise from the existence of multinational customers located in more than one country. Investment intensity, for instance, high research and development costs may force a company to coordinate. Okay, may force a company to coordinate. There's a need to gather holistic information on competitors. There's also the need for compliance. Okay, poor compliance in one subsidiary can be damaging for the corporation as a whole. All right, so that is about the global integration. Let's look at the other aspect of the IR framework, which is the local responsiveness. Now, local responsiveness relates to meeting the specific needs of buyers in individual countries by adapting to customer needs, the competitive environment, and the distribution structure. Some industries require a greater degree of local responsiveness than others. Industries where local responsiveness is likely to be fairly high include both publishing, food, and retail, where you need to design it to fit the local demand, right? So here in Ghana, most of the foods that find are local foods, okay? Most of the retail things that are specific for our local need. Publishing, publications, books are designed to fit the local markets. All right. Now, the pressures for local responsiveness may include different customer needs. Okay, different customers have their own different needs, differences in the ways, features, and benefits are communicated to target customers, either due to cultural preferences or local legislation. Demands by host country governments, laws, regulations, trade policies, and so on and so forth. Again, demands from local stakeholders, trade unions, or consumer groups may force corporations to make adaptations to their strategies. All right. So we'll look at the framework itself. So you have on one side the pressure for local responsiveness, on another side the pressure for global integration, giving rise to 4 strategies, that is international, multinational, transnational, and global organization. We'll look at them one after the other. Now, global strategy is a situation where you have headquarters exerting substantial control and there is centralized coordination. Here, management views the world as one big market. Okay, so the pressures for local responsiveness is weak, but then the pressure for global integration is strong. So that is what the global organization strategy. Operating costs are generally lower as a result of economies of scale. The quality of both products and processes can also be improved as manufacturing and other processes can be simplified. However, coordination of many widely dispersed organization operations can be challenging for management and may lead to reduced flexibility and responsiveness. Okay, we'll look at transnational strategy. Here, the organizations attempt to respond to local needs while maintaining sufficient central control. So you have strong pressure for local responsiveness and strong pressure for global integration. They aim to develop a flexible approach in which they will standardize where feasible and adapt where appropriate. A typical example are Ford vehicles and then McDonald's company. Then we have international organization where the pressure for local responsiveness is weak and the pressure for global integration is also weak. Now, companies that adapt this strategy consider international business to be separate from and secondary to the domestic business. Products are designed for the home country or market, and international markets are viewed as a way of replicating success and extending the product life cycle. Examples include Walmart and Microsoft. These are international organizations. India, India look. Then we have the multinational company, which have strong pressure for local responsiveness and weak pressure for global integration. These companies or organizations allow each country manager significant autonomy to operate independently and seek local responsiveness. Okay? The differences between national markets are both recognized and emphasized. They're both recognized and emphasized. Country managers operate independently, and there is little knowledge sharing between the group. This approach places a low demand on the headquarters as tasks are delegated out. However, there are more likely to be areas of duplication and inefficiencies, as well as lower savings from economies of scale. And we'll look at the basis for assessing business strategy. Okay, there are three main bases for assessing business strategy. And before deciding whether or not to choose a particular business strategy, an assessment should be carried out to judge whether the strategy is acceptable. Okay, um, so we'll look at these three main strategies in all considerations, namely suitability, where you ask whether um, the strategy, if the strategy addresses the strategic requirements, given the circumstances and the situation under which the organization finds itself. Acceptability, that's whether it addresses the strategic requirements in a way that will be acceptable to significant stakeholders. And then finally, if it is practical. Now, within the assessment of acceptability or feasibility should be the financial consideration or analysis of the proposed strategy. Because feasibility, definitely, we would want to look at financial feasibility and operational feasibilities. Now, strategies might be suitable and they might succeed in achieving their business objectives. Although, if the expected financial return is too low, the strategy could only be implemented at a loss. Okay, so such a strategy may not be undertaken. Now, an assessment of the strategy must always consider the financial aspect. Why? Very important and critical. Okay. And when an entity has decided its business strategy, it might make new investments or undertake new business initiatives in order to put the strategy into practice. In principle, all new investment decisions should be expected to provide a minimum acceptable financial return, typically using net present value. The NPV should always be positive. The decision should also um, be consistent with the chosen strategies, and there should be a strategic fit between strategy and investments. However, an investment opportunity might be identified that will provide high financial returns, but it may not be a good fit for the organization. Now, even though the investment is not consistent with agreed strategy, it would probably be undertaken where especially the NPV is very high. Okay, they will find a way to get um, uh, this strategy to fit or to be a business fit. All right. We'll talk about ethics and corporate social responsibility. Ethics and corporate social responsibility. Now, in business, ethics is associated with acting within the law. Okay, first of all, acting within the law, that is compliance with acceptable international codes of behavior, such as codes against bribery or contracts. Okay, ethics also deal with fair and honest dealing with suppliers and customers. It includes acting fairly towards employees and showing due concern for the welfare of your employees. Okay, showing respect for human rights, refusing to deal with entities that do not show concern for human rights. A significant issue for some companies in recent years has been public pressure to avoid dealing with suppliers in developing countries who use child slave labor. Showing concern for the environment again and the need for sustainable businesses. Ethical stance. Now, in business ethics, the ethics of a company can also be described as an ethical stance. An ethical stance is the extent to which an entity will exceed its minimum legal and ethical obligations to stakeholders and society in general. Right. There are four main positions with regards to ethical stance. Position 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, with position 1, the company takes the view that its only interest should be the short-term interest of its shareholders. Business decisions should therefore be taken with satisfying shareholder interest as the only objective. Emphasis on what? Only objective. Okay. Position 2 considers the view that the company takes the view that the interest of its shareholders are the most important concern, but that in the long term, the company will benefit by showing some concerns for the interest of employees, for the interest of the community, for the interest of the general public and the environment within which they operate. The company therefore acts in its enlightened self-interest. Position 3 of the ethical stance. Here, the company recognizes an obligation not only to its shareholders, but to other stakeholder groups. Fourth position, the company has an ethical obligation towards society as a whole and should be a shaper of society, creating a fair and just society for everyone. Financial objectives should be secondary importance here. Now, ethical behavior by companies is generally associated with an ethical stance around position 2 or position 3. These two. Okay. Are there any consequences for unethical behavior by organizations? Of course. Acting ethically reduces risk. And there are several possible consequences of unethical behavior. Now, when business conduct is illegal or in breach of regulation, there is a risk of being found out. The consequences could be the payment of fines to the authorities or compensation to individuals who have suffered as a consequence of the illegal behavior. In some cases, individual directors might be able or might be liable to imprisonment for illegal behavior. When businesses act legally, but in a way that the general public considers immoral, there is a risk of action by the government to make such action illegal. Businesses that act in an unethical way are also exposed to reputational risk. And what is reputational risk? Reputational risk is a risk of the reputation of the organization. Many large companies take the view that in a competitive business environment, customer loyalty depends on the general public's perception of the company's behavior, which establishes a reputation. Reputation comes from business practice such as providing high quality products at a fair price. It also comes from ethical behavior. Companies with a good reputation find it easier to win and keep loyal customers and also loyal employees. When a business reputation is damaged, there is a risk of losing customers to rival companies. So the main consequence of unethical behavior is reputational risk. Now, so companies that have been exposed to reputational risk include companies accused of buying from suppliers in developing countries and other countries that use child labor or slave labor. Okay, these organizations have poor reputation, and so their reputational risk is quite high. Again, companies accused of polluting the environment are considered unethical organizations. Companies in the food and drugs industries accused of selling dangerous food products or dangerous drugs are all organizations that are practicing unethical behaviors. It's important to note that in the issue of ethical considerations in organizations, ethical codes must be applied. Now, on the New York State Stock Exchange, rules require companies whose shares are traded to have publicly displayed code of business conduct and ethics. So everybody would know it and abide and work by it. In the UK, about 90% of companies have a code of ethics, specific company code of ethics. Now, if ethical codes are to be effective, then they must be strongly endorsed from the top of the company. Otherwise, it will not work. Training must be given, otherwise, many employees may not even be aware that it exists, let alone know how to apply it. Again, the code of ethics must be kept up to date from time to time. And the adherence to the code should be part of employees' contracts. You should sign the contract to abide by the code of ethics of the organization. Okay? And any departure from the code should be punishable. Okay? Should be punishable. We'll take a look at corporate social responsibility. This is the responsibility that companies recognize for acting in a socially responsible manner. Okay? It usually means that a company goes further than required by law in order to treat employees fairly and with respect, operate in an ethical way and with integrity in all its business dealings with customers, suppliers, lenders, and everybody. Respect for human rights, sustain the environment for future generations to come. They are a responsible neighbor in their community and a good corporate citizen. Corporate social responsibility, therefore, is closely linked to ethical behavior. Many large stock market companies issue reports on corporate social responsibility activities. Okay, these reports might be included in the annual report and account. Okay, for example, quoted companies in the European Union are now required to provide information on social and environmental issues in a business review within the annual report and account. Now, some companies publish a separate CSR report. This may be called a social and environmental report or a sustainability report. These describe the company's social and environmental strategies and their progress towards achieving their corporate social responsibility strategic objectives. Now, are there any implications of ethics and corporate social responsibility for strategy? Of course, companies that acknowledge their ethical responsibilities and corporate social responsibility need to demonstrate their genuine commitment to these ideals. Thus, they need to consider the implications of ethics and corporate social responsibility for their strategic planning and objectives. Now, the growing importance of environmental or ecological issues is something we have discussed earlier. Many large public companies have adopted formal environmental policies with objectives for creating a sustainable business and being environmentally friendly. Okay? For example, a company that uses large quantities of timber as raw material might adopt a policy of reforestation, okay, to replace trees that have been cut down. A company that sells sea fish might adopt a policy of maintaining fish stocks in the seas. Now, ethics might also affect a company's policy to its employees. If a company has a formal policy of providing secure employment, fair wages and salaries, and good working conditions to its employees, this policy might affect strategic decisions about relocating business and making staff redundant. A policy of ethical business leading might involve a business decision that all suppliers will be paid promptly, for example. Now remember, corporate social responsibility also confers some competitive advantage upon the organization. These days, many companies are waking up to the strategic responsibilities and strategic advantages of being environmentally friendly companies. Customers might be willing to pay more for environment-friendly products and for healthy food. These days, you see typical examples even in the bottling water companies. Some of them, you see the bottles, they've designed the recyclable symbol and put it on it. So that tells you that their products are environmentally friendly. So you'd want to choose that. We have some water companies who donate a certain amount of money per bottle of water to help with financing the healthcare budget. Typically, they send us to the cardiothoracic center in Kodebu, okay, and so on and so forth. There are many examples. There's a growing interest in smaller motor cars and cars driven by biofuel, which is environmentally friendly, or electricity, okay, which is quite environmentally friendly than the use of oil or petrol and diesel. Okay, so corporate social responsibility activities are a sure way of creating value. Now, according to our favorite management expert, Michael Porter, companies should not merely be taking corporate social responsibility as a mere thing. Okay? They should take it quite serious. They should be embedded in the CSR should be embedded into their corporate and business strategy in order to build competitive advantage for their organizations. All right, so we'll end here and continue some other time. Thank you for your time.